What up, Cagesiders? It's your boy Sean here on a Sunday afternoon. We're doing this will probably actually go up pretty live on the site on a slow news day, but it's not a slow news day edition of Cageside Live. It is Cageside Speaks. This is the third edition of said show where community members get together and mostly I try to stay out of the way and just direct traffic, and we get to find out what a panel of Cagesiders think about the events of the day. And this one is a little bit different. Our last two have been WWE focused. We've done them after pay-per-views, and we're going to do another one after SummerSlam. But this one is all about a show that caught a lot of people by surprise over the last 39 or so weeks. Nobody was sure what to make of it. Then people started to really get into it, and then it really started to get a lot of momentum. And by the time its season finale rolled around the last 2 weeks, Lucha Underground was getting pretty universal praise from the internet, which is a damn amazing thing when you stop to think about it, that there weren't too many people saying, that sucks, about something on the internet. So, we're going to talk Ultima Lucha, the 3-hour show. With me, I have Zentrification, the man who brings you the great characters of profiles and GIFs, and I'm going to call them GIFs, and Gino can come at me, and whatever else he can dig up about Lucha Underground. How you doing, man?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm all right. It's always good to talk wrestling on a weekend. And then I have two returning Cageside speakers. One is right there, blue and orange for life.
How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Not bad, thanks.
Excellent. And well, I say returning, but actually we have a new luchador here in the temple, Del Guerrero. I can't even do it. So what's up, man?
I'm doing fine. It's Del Guerrero.
Del
Guerrero.
Yeah,
the Spanish equivalent of Von Kreiger. So, Del Guerrero.
Del Guerrero. That should be hard. I mean, Eddie's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Why can't I say it? Maybe it's because I don't want to associate the Chikara-looking mask with Eddie.
Well, I've got 4 more if the Chikara mask is bothering you.
It is not bothering me, sir. No, not at all. Actually, I'm just envious. That's all. You brought props, and none of us do. So, yeah. All right. So let's dive right in. Overall, let's start. Tell us about your experience with Lucha Underground. Did you watch from the beginning? Did you get hooked somewhere along the way and go back and binge watch? I mean, let's start with you, Zentz. How did you come to find this little gem of a show?
I actually switched to Dish right when LU started up, and I was just passively catching it. The first half of the season really didn't excite me at all. It felt kind of odd, and right around episodes 20 through 24 is when it really seemed to really be what it was intended to be, and that's when it captured my imagination. You're talking Great Consequences, the Trios tournament for the championship. Right about then is when it really caught my attention, and I just was addicted from then on. And I have all the episodes on my DVR still, so that's awesome.
Good man, good man. Blue?
So I actually don't have cable, so I've been illicitly watching the show on Daily Motion. But
we can now everything that he says from here on out, but it's just
I wasn't watching it at the start. I forget who it was. Might have been Manolo, might have been Rancho. Somebody tipped me off to it. Said it was good stuff, and I found time to squeeze in the first episode, and I was intrigued. And like Zentz, I think it took a while to find its footing, but I got to watching it almost every week. There were a couple times I fell behind. I had to binge to catch up, but I mean, I really feel like by the end of it, it was really firing on all cylinders.
Agreed. Dale?
I think I started watching, it was either 2 or 3 episodes in, and I had no idea it existed. I think I stumbled across it. I think someone mentioned it on Cageside, and I was going, oh, hey, there's a Lucha-inspired promotion that has commentary in English that I can actually understand. Wow! And so I watched episode 3, and then found episodes 1 and 2 on Daily Motion. And so Wednesday night just became wrestling night with NXT and Lucha Underground because I started watching NXT at about the same time. And for a while, it was NXT was my favorite one, but somewhere the last few months, Lucha Underground just overtook it because Lucha Underground was delivering a more interesting plot, I felt, every week with the movie-inspired elements. It's not just the same old pro wrestling.
Agreed. Yeah, I think I've talked about this in my NXT rundowns that I do for the site. Somewhere around, like maybe right around where Zentz is talking about, maybe a little bit afterwards, I started to realize that I'm watching NXT wishing I was watching Lucha Underground, which was kind of a weird thing, but
Instead of the other way around.
yeah. So yeah, I agree though, and I think so. That got us there. So I think that's sort of what we saw on the internet too, is that people really got to building about it. I know just from behind the scenes at Cageside, the first few episodes and things like Manolo's rundowns were getting like 200 hits a week, and then by the time we got to Ultima Lucha, there was demand for like the open threads and stuff. It had really caught on. And I think, free plugs to Daily Motion, I think a lot of people ended up having to do that. I think if it had been on a network with more viewers, it would be having even more of an impact now. And maybe they're going to fix that for Season 2, but maybe we'll touch on that towards the end. So let's talk about Ultima Lucha, which our main man, our homeboy Dario Cueto, a few weeks back told us would be a 2-week show, 3 hours long. So we'll go back to, not this past Wednesday, but the Wednesday before for the first hour. And we'll talk about, so it started with some of that movie-inspired plot stuff that Del was talking about there, which it started with Dario Cueto talking to Black Lotus, which is something that played out throughout the course of 3 hours. How do you guys like this plot? We were talking beforehand about Chavo Guerrero's many turns, and I think he did at least 2 of them in this plot, at least in the middle of this plot. So I mean, what was it like for you guys seeing a pay-per-view open with this like plot segment essentially?
I mean, it's part of what makes Lucha Underground work so well is that they have this like, it's like wrestling history. It's always been, oh yeah, there's this stuff going on backstage that a cameraman just happened to be around to catch, so that we all know what's going on. I think the kind of the disconnect, like in a good way, between the people in the temple don't necessarily know all the stuff that's going on backstage, and so it's entirely fitting that we kind of started with this, what's probably the temple's longest-running plot line. And there were times, admittedly, when I thought, okay, they've dragged this out for so long, there's no way Matanza is going to, stack up to what we think it might be. It's going to be a letdown. But, having Chavo and his many turns, I think, helped breathe new life into it and to sort of figure out and, what has happened to El Dragon Azteca, So it was definitely a fitting and good start.
What were you guys surprised by the turns that this took through the final 3 hours? Did you see heading into Ultima Lucha? Did you see what we would end up seeing from Dario and especially from Black Lotus?
I wasn't expecting her. I wasn't expecting it at all. With her aligning with him, and I thought it was very interesting. The whole Matanza cage monster thing, that's been there since the very beginning. Dario Cueto came out with the key around his neck in episode 1, and it's been there ever since. So it's just I've been loving the whole thing. It's something you don't see very often in wrestling is long, drawn-out, well-thought booking. Most wrestling promotions, they just go week to week to week, making it up on the fly, it seems. And with Lucha Underground, we're having plot points revealed that were hinted at weeks and months and damn near an entire year ago. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agreed 100%. Zentz, how was it for you? I mean, do you think, well, let me ask you a different question. Do you think we'll ever see Matanza? Should we ever see Matanza?
I think we should, and I hope we do. One of the things that actually surprised me about the vignettes was that none of it spilled out into the temple. We actually have a plot device being used to tell the story of Dario Cueto, the guy who runs the place. And it can be used to bring people into the temple, explain why they're there. but at the same time, we have this autonomous story that none of the wrestlers are directly involved in. So it's a really nice thing to have this picture of Dario Cueto and why he's doing what he's doing as it relates to the rest of his life beyond what we see on the screen. And so I think it's just really fascinating that we have that when contrasted to generic scenes of the Authority talking nothing over here.
Sorry.
I think at some point, Matanza actually has to prove he is this beast that has to be locked up. Otherwise, it seems pointless to have him there.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this myself. That's why I asked you, because I mean there are I guess it was somewhere in the second night we got our first sort of glimpse of him through the truck,
through the U-Haul trailer. Yeah.
And he looks kind of impressive, but we just got to see some glowing eyes and some sort of either reptile skin or a face mask or something. Yeah. So we'll see. But I would definitely. I mean, that was my critique. I remember writing a review of the first episode and going, "Oh God, great! Just what we need, another Authority figure." And I couldn't have been more wrong.
You have to think now. He's one of the, if not the best characterized people in all of wrestling today. I mean,
yeah.
He's nuanced. He's got backstory. He's got reasons for doing the things that he does that nobody knows about, but sort of, even not knowing them, everything he does makes perfect sense. He loves chaos. Doesn't matter who's doing it. Doesn't matter what the result is. Just, more violence, more fights, more chaos for him to stand atop. And I mean, I'm assuming we'll get to this later when we talk about the Mil Muertes match, but one of the most intriguing plot points of the last half of the season has been watching him trying to stay ahead of Katrina.
Yep. Indeed. And that seems like it might be a sort of chaos that got out of control for him, which ties into even the very end of the episode. So, all right, so let's get into some wrestling, though, because I could talk about Dario Cueto for 2 hours, honestly. Love that dude. Great performance, too, by the way. Anyway, Mac and Cage, we're talking about him, this one a little bit before the start. This was our first match. It was Falls Count Anywhere, which was a theme. I mean, really, it got to where pretty much one by hook or by crook, they made all of these things no DQ, pretty much. These guys made the most of it. A big hoss fight that Cage ends up winning. I mean, talk about it, guys. How was it for you, Zents?
Loved it. It was a great way to open the show. If Ultima Lucha had been 1 3-hour show, there's a good chance it would have been in the top 3 matches. I think people forgot about how great it was because it kicked everything off. It might have been just a spot fest that went everywhere rather than just a wrestling match. But these two dudes hate each other. They're supposed to be beating each other to death. And there's no better way to do that than with a curb stomp through a cinder block.
And a case full of Miller Lite and a stunner.
Yeah. The troll grabs were awesome.
Another great moment of Lucha Underground unintentionally or intentionally trolling the WWE. Like, Strikers call that the beer salute into the stunner. Oh, it was absolute perfection. And, they did the cement block curb stomp, and I think they did it in a way that made more sense than when the E did it.
Yeah.
I don't know where the taping schedule lined up with what was going on Raw, so I don't know if it happened after the cement blocks. I'm assuming it did because that
the cement blocks was way back last year, wasn't it?
I think it's after. My question is, did it happen after they banned the curb stomp? I think it's right around the same time.
Yeah, actually, that could very well be. I remember.
I think they filmed this. This is at least 2 months old. I mean, this has been out there for a while.
I think I want to say they recorded. It's either April or May that they did. Yeah. They recorded this in.
So it's definitely a shot at the WWE. It's just a question of how big of a shot, I guess.
I mean, it's brilliant either way.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of it was 2 big guys throwing bombs at each other, and was it perfect? Was it a technical masterpiece? No, but it was brilliant fun. It was a great way to open the show.
Yeah, Dale, what was your familiarity with either of these guys before Lucha Underground? Were you?
I had never heard of either one of them, though.
Okay.
I might vaguely have heard of Cage by name somewhere, but
Right.
I'd never seen the dude before. Willie Mack, I knew nothing about, but he's really impressed me. He's built like a big, thick, just guy on the street dude, and here he is busting out standing moonsaults and shit.
Yep. Yeah, I was just curious because I've seen a little bit of both guys and known a little bit about both guys, but this, even given that they were both pretty exciting revelations to me throughout the year. I didn't even know they were bringing Willie Mack in until he showed up. I don't know what. I mean, he came in pretty early, but not at the very beginning. So
I think about either dude, and they were both a joy to watch all season.
I mean, and that's, I think that's something that, another thing that you can praise about the show is that they had a couple of ex-WWE guys, but it wasn't like a TNA, we're just going to take everybody that WWE's cut and show them off. They took what they had to work with, and to me, that's something that, people will make excuses for the E or other promotions. Well, so-and-so's injured or so-and-so left. No, you take what you've got and you can tell a great story with them.
We can talk later a bit about the stealth MVP of the Temple, King Cuerno.
Ah.
But I think Mac in particular really took to the environment, and he really seemed like he was sort of growing with each match that he had, especially after the whole thing that played out with Daivari that kind of jump-started the Cage feud. But,
Yeah.
it's like Del said, this is a guy that you would not expect to move like he does, and just, insane stuff that he's busting out all over the place. And it's, like Zen said, it's a ton of fun to watch.
So where do you rank this? You don't, not official, but just, is this in the top third of the matches on the show, the middle third?
I would say so. Top third.
I'd say top third.
It was fun. It was interesting. There was just a little bit of everything. They did a little bit of wrestling. They did a bit of brawling, bit of comedy, bit of brutality,
bit of trolling.
Yep.
Sort of Lucha Underground in a nutshell. So
Yep.
we can certainly agree this was a really good choice for opener, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Set the tone. After that, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, like I said, I am working off of, and he couldn't be here with us, but I do want to give a shout out. I think he sort of got the Lucha Underground craze going on Cageside, and certainly kept it going through maybe some down periods too. Manolo has pizzazz, which indeed he does. I'm using one of his rundowns to remind me of this stuff, especially the stuff that happened late last week. I think we went right into the trios title after that.
We did.
Which, for me, it was one of my favorite stories of the year. And I guess I could say this about just about everything on the show, but I did not think back in week one, Son of Havoc, and I knew Ivelisse because I'm a sort of a women's wrestling fan, even on the indie scene, but I didn't think that these guys were going to be like my favorite freaking characters and like the best baby faces on the planet. But here we were, Team Dysfunction, whatever you want to call them, with Angelico.
Team Hell No 2.0.
Hell No 2.0, just, and again, that's a good point. Not really an original idea, a tag team that doesn't like each other, but still somehow made to feel fresh. Ivelisse on one foot against the first wave in this show of Katrina's Death Comes For Us All movement, the Disciples of Death, who I can't run down their names, even though I know one of them is sort of like Sinestro.
I believe it's Sinestro Barrio, Trece, and something Muerto by
There you go. Something deliciously, ridiculously lucha. Like electroshock or something. I don't know. Anyway, then we got to this match, which again, using the environment, spot fest, but still telling a story. Did you see the title change coming here?
Yeah. Yeah, I felt they have to lose eventually.
They had held it since the inception.
Yep, and especially with Ivelisse with her injury, it meant that there was two well, Havoc isn't the biggest gentleman, and Angelico's kind of willowy, so
An almighty numbers game.
yeah, it's a
that
numbers
numbers game.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I kind of felt like it was coming. I think part of the problem for me is that the three guys that are playing the Disciples of Death are just really not all that good, and that kind of takes away from. Unfortunately, kind of takes away from the story. I mean, it was. I mean, I loved watching them, by hook or by crook, hang on to those belts for the entire run that they had, like from the end of the tournament to the end of the season. I mean, it certainly did the best to, cement them as amazing, well-loved characters, and and in keeping with the the wave of death coming from Katrina, that it makes sense in story. I just wish they'd gotten some dudes who were a little bit better.
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's not immediately obvious, but all three guys are basically the jobbers that Pentagon broke their arms. So they're guys that Pentagon has sacrificed to his Dark Master.
I did not realize that.
Yep. So one is Mariachi Loco, I think, and I'm not sure who the other two are. I don't remember them because they were job guys. So
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing that they did was they stood around and sort of tilted their head in creepy ways, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and I'm such a fan. I'm a suck for standing around and tilting your head in a creepy way.
especially if you jump off lockers occasionally. So.
Yeah.
So Zentz, again, another. Where do you rank the jump from Angelico in this match against other Angelico jumps throughout the season?
The third out of all three.
Really? Okay.
It's the worst position to do it from. You're jumping over fans.
Yeah.
And you can't short that. You might kill somebody.
Right.
And he almost did short it. One of the three DOD was off to the side. The one guy, I think, took on Helico in his thighs. And so it was all the rest of the weight momentum was on the one dude.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if he had internal injuries from that. But I think that's also symptomatic of a flaw in the story in that it was the wrong people they were dropping the title to. Not so much the gimmick, but those three guys weren't the right ones to be taking that kind of a catch for him.
Right.
And
yeah, I'm looking at the GIF of it here. Yeah, you can't really tell. I mean, he definitely doesn't hit the one guy at all. The one guy sort of just does like a Brie Bella fall because he's.
Yeah, this is the bottom of the Angelico dives, and I'm just thinking that it wasn't really needed. It's just they're just doing the spot for doing the spot because. It's expected in
they sort of set the expectation that he's going to do something crazy like that, and
he did it.
So I think this is another point to talk about. Something that I think is a valid criticism of the show is that sometimes the wrestling doesn't match up to the story.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the right story here. I mean, this was part of, especially once we saw the singles title match on the next show, heading into the off season, hopefully, just for a little while. But not a great match. I mean, especially when you put it as a 2.5 people against 3. I mean, how often did that affect your enjoyment of the show? Did it stick out to you in the moment, or you get caught up in the story, or is that something they might need to address in season 2? What do you think?
I think after the fact, it was mostly when I noticed it, just sort of going back and thinking about it. They're really good at making sure that the story covers up the weaknesses in the wrestling for the most part. And they're not huge weaknesses. I mean, the majority of the roster are all at least solid. The floor, I think, is kind of solid. Is solid wrestling. So the story usually covers up any in-ring weaknesses. I mean, there's the fact that like Lucha Libre itself is not for everyone, and it can appear more contrived than other styles. But I didn't really notice it much. I think it just stood out most in this match to me because it was such a big deal. Because it was for the trios titles, because it was Ultima Lucha.
Yeah, it's one of the more glaring examples of when the wrestling doesn't meet the minimum for what you need for the story.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate since this is two of the better. I mean, I guess that's why I've covered up, and even we're not slamming it. It's two of the better stories of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Katrina's Rise and Team Dysfunction. So, but you kind of you would have liked the payoff to both of those things, at least in this. It's not the full payoff to Katrina's Rise, but it would have been nice if it had a little bit more memorable moments. But hey, let's see. Matt Stryker saluted Vampiro here in between these last two matches, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then we got to, and I know this is, at least one person on the panel had their opinion of somebody flipped around here with the Believers Backlash match, which was Hernandez versus Drago. The gimmick here was that the ring was surrounded not by other wrestlers like in a lumberjack match, but believers from the temple who had, straps and stuff, and they could beat the crap out of whoever fell to the outside. And the way Hernandez has been presented in the show and, just generally in real life, I guess, people enjoyed smacking the shit out of Hernandez. So,
and just wow, I'm not really a fan of Hernandez. He seems like such a douche in the ring, bit of a douche out of the ring, and he just. I don't like watching him wrestle, but really major props to him for letting 20 wrestling fans literally smack them as hard as they could with leather belts. 15 seconds in, his forehead was totally red from a belt shot.
It's one of the better ways to get people to change their opinion about you, I've seen. Zentz, I want to kick it to you because I know he's sort of your MVP of the whole shebang here. So tell us how you love Hernandez now.
I don't even know why. It's his facial expressions through the whole thing were classic. The dude tried calling a timeout, and they just started whipping him again anyways. It didn't matter what he did. They just kept wailing on him. He'd be on the apron, which I thought was kind of fine. He's not on the floor, can't hit him. They'd hit him anyways. Someone in the Daily was talking about how before the match he told the guys to just go ahead and let loose. Because if it wasn't real, then it's not going to work. So the dude was a total champ for taking an ass whooping. And then that tweet he sent out about 20 guys with fans, a dragon, and a table, and somehow I'm the bad guy. It was just so great. If nothing else, he got tons of respect out of me for going through that. It's just one of those weird things that's just going to stick with you for reasons you can't even explain.
Yeah, he's still a schmuck. He's still incredibly unsafe in the ring, but, I gotta...
That works for him here.
I gotta give him props. He let a bunch of strangers beat the crap out of him with straps. How can you not appreciate that?
Yeah, it's hard to... Yeah, I will still cringe every time he border tosses somebody, because I think that's one of the scariest moves to watch somebody take in wrestling. But, yeah, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for him now, too. Oh, dear. So, unsurprisingly, our Man-Dragon hero wins, and, that's the right call, I guess. I don't think anybody has an argument with that, right?
Yeah.
Nah.
I love Drago. Drago is my favorite good guy on the show. My favorite character, period, is Mil Muertes. So.
Oh, there you go. So you got both sides covered then.
Yep.
Drago's pretty awesome. Another one I wasn't expecting to like, but hey.
He's on the show. He's a real fucking dragon that turns into a human being. How can you not like that? He does the whole slurp thing with the tongue, and they've made him a black dragon in his attire recently, and they gave him a fucking breath weapon with the green mist. That's awesome.
I just like that, if a dragon had the power to turn into a person, what would he do? Of course, he would be a pro wrestler. Come on. It's ridiculous to think he would do anything else.
So I might be a bit biased since in my e-fetting I do play a dragon who is also a professional wrestler, and that predated Lucha Underground by about 6 months.
So he's sort of custom made for you. So the hour one ended with El Dragon Azteca entering the temple. We got a little bit of the Robert Rodriguez flair for a with a little kung fu showdown with White Hoodie. We don't know who White Hoodie is yet. And he ends up, White Hoodie's trying to stop him from entering the temple. It ends up acquiescing and letting him in. And dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
We're on to hour 2 and 3. Any thoughts on this? I don't know if you want to save this for the end or.
Let's save it for the end.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll get to White Hoodie and everything at the end. All right. So that was our. So where did the first hour rank in? I mean, you don't have to give me exactly, of course, but was it above average episode of the show, or was it just?
Yeah, I thought so. It was
one of the better ones for sure.
Okay. Good. I was just looking at Manolo's review. Even he said kind of the same thing we said. Pure spectacle with so-so wrestling. So that's pretty fitting. All right. So then we were into we got the full. We got dedicated to the original Rudo, Rowdy Piper on the start of the second and third hour, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yep. And if I was the executive producer of Lucha Underground, did a Ask Me Anything the other day. And apparently Piper absolutely loved Lucha Underground, and they wanted to do a cameo with him where he'd be in a hood, so have a hoodie on, so you'd only hear his voice, and people would be going, "Was that really him?" And he passed away before they could do it.
That's too bad. I could see him fitting in here in some way. I mean, it's of a piece with his stuff, and that. It was character and story over everything else. So we got Michael Schiavello replacing Vampiro for this one because he had some stuff to do. Some makeup to put on probably from very early on in this one. But we opened with another one of the great payoffs to a big grudge feud, Mundo versus El Patron. People have been kicked through plate glass windows in this. That's generally just trying to prove who's got the biggest, whatever. In former WWE
as
guys.
Bobby Heenan would say, they were trying to escape through plate glass windows.
Oh, there you go. But well put. So how did we like this? I know this is a place to discuss another critique that some people, including Mr. El Patron himself, have about Lucha Underground, which is the editing. So how the build of this? I think we all like the build of this. Did this feel like a good payoff to that feud?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think it was a pretty good blow off. Just Mundo just having all that blood. Wow,
that was quite a visual. Yeah, I mean I think that's on a second viewing I wasn't as impressed on the first one because on the first one I was like, hey, Molina's back and he's bleeding a lot, and then So, Zentz, I know you were not a big fan of this match, maybe particularly because of that editing that I mentioned. So, you talk a little bit about how it was for you.
Yeah, I tried rewatching it. There was one spot where I want to say it was Patron trying to dive out the ring. Mundo kicked him, and then they were kind of more or less in place for the next 15 seconds or so. And then for about the next 30 seconds of action, I counted in that 45 seconds 15 changes to the camera angle. It was nauseating at points to watch. So by the time we got to the end, I was just glad it was ending. It was cool to see Molina show up. I'm fine with having an ending like that. It seemed appropriate. And I think it leaves plenty of space for these two to go at it again in Season 2. Because this is only match number 2. We're used to having a 3 series. But it was just, I did not have fun watching it visually.
Why? I mean, I haven't read anything. Do you guys? Are there reports as to why they did? I mean, because it did seem to be worse during this match too. Were they trying to cover something? I
don't know what it was.
Theories or ideas even.
If I recall correctly, there was one point where they where Mundo was running around the ring that that went on live for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That was only 10 seconds on the show. So.
I wish Rancho King was supposed to be here with us, and maybe he'll chime in the comments. He was actually there for the taping, so he probably could have given us some insight here. But Zentz, what you were going to say?
Oh, I was going to say the same thing. Like he would just appear just at a completely random point that you didn't see him get to.
Yeah.
It was just a weird way to start as well.
True.
I had because this was like during my long hiatus from wrestling. Did Mundo and El Patron overlap in the WWE? Because they kind of hand waved towards it in a lot of their backstage segments. Like referencing their past relationship and oh, I know you love the spotlight and all that kind of stuff. So I was just curious going in if they overlapped in any significant way. I know Mundo left the company in like 2010 or something like that.
I was thinking that they had just crossed over a little bit, and a quick Google confirms that there are a handful of Morrison versus Del Rio matches from 2010. So they were there together for at least a little while, probably not too long, but
I mean,
yeah.
For me, having a mini M&M reunion kind of papered over a lot of the not so great camera work and the kind of standard match feel that it had to it. But the ending was great. The ending, I think, was it came full circle, and as was said, it keeps it open for them to do more stuff later on if they want to revisit this connection.
Yeah, I was surprised how moved I was by the return of Melina. I mean, I didn't actually think I was going to get excited about that, but it worked for me.
Could have done without the spanking thing, but
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, that was a little much.
I was pleased that they didn't go full Ring of Honor and have him like slap her or anything, but
yeah.
I don't know. I guess, and I'm more willing to give Lucha Underground a pass since this is a company that
you never go full Ring of Honor.
What's that? Yeah, exactly. Never go full Ring of Honor. Since this is a company that plays as if their female characters can hang with the guys no matter what, and is even brings in the exotico characters and those things too. So, but yeah, that was not their proudest moment there. So I guess we were all sort of underwhelmed with this one, but overall it didn't ruin anything for us. Is kind of the vibe I'm getting.
It was there.
It was okay. It wasn't great or anything.
I certainly didn't open the final hour, the final show the way Mac and Cage had opened the first hour. Then we got a big development in the Dario Cueto saga. El Dragon Azteca made it in to the dungeon. And Black Lotus didn't want to be rescued, so at least not by him. Shock, awe, what?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised about the whole thing. I wasn't expecting her to, off the guy.
Did you feel like this fits in with everything we knew?
Yeah, it does with her wanting revenge for her parents and whatnot. And though I'm not sure how trustworthy Dario is, but
we do know that Dario is a very convincing man.
Yes.
What I find interesting is I'm not sure Dario Cueto has lied about anything yet. And if there was one thing I would be certain that we couldn't take for granted with him is what he's saying is true. So far, everything he seems to be saying has been the reality of the story. And as we saw when he left the temple, he didn't reveal any sort of joy in manipulating Black Lotus into killing El Dragon Azteca. So
he seemed surprised that she did it himself.
Yeah. So I think he was kind of taken aback by her following through on it, because he really didn't seem to enjoy the thought of these two families now being at war with each other. He was actually abandoning the temple when he left, because that's where the blood feud now starts.
True. I had not. That's true. He is not. He definitely seems willing to revealed truths when they benefit him, but he has not outwardly lied that we know of. So,
Yeah.
again, most interesting character in wrestling probably right now.
Yep. I agree. So interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm still a little bit shocked. So El Dragon Azteca is muerto.
We think.
So and we also Daryl just unlocked the cell here, right? And nobody like Montaza didn't rage out. He was, I guess, willingly transported into a U-Haul. So
maybe he's got a collar on him like Jet Li in Unleashed.
True. That could be.
Or was it? Or maybe they fed Dragon Azteca to him and he was happy and had a full belly.
Yeah, that's true. He may have been sated. You know, having eaten a nice, I don't know,
Turkey.
Elderly luchador.
Yeah. From there, we went into Cerro Miedo, Pentagon Jr.'s big showdown with Vampiro, who came out in his full evil Pope getup. And again, not a spectacle of great wrestling, but a well-structured hardcore match, I guess.
Yep.
And Pentagon is in his 50s, has had multiple back surgery. Not Pentagon, Vampiro. We probably will be able to say that about Pentagon in 20 years, but for now, Vampiro is the one who's old and has back problems. And yeah, I mean, take it away. I mean, I will say, I did call the Master reveal. I'm not entirely sold on it yet, but that's what next season's for.
I've been expecting this about half once Pentagon and Vampiro started getting involved, that Vampiro would end up being the Dark Master, but I really liked the reveal. I really liked the way it was done. And I just can't help but love the closing shot at the end of the show with Vampiro almost literally as Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very much literally in Pentagon's ear on that last shot, too. Did this work for you guys as a hardcore match?
Oh yeah. Good God! Buckets of blood from both guys.
One of the constant criticisms was that it was a paint-by-numbers hardcore match, more or less saying it was very simplistically laid out, and they were just going through the normal rote steps of what's considered hardcore. For my taste, given the story, it was kind of obvious the closer we got that Vampiro was PJ's master. Well, that's actually the simplest plotline for that story, and it actually works out the best. So in that same vein, having the simplest hardcore match possible, which also serves to protect Vampiro, was actually a really good idea. And I think one of the details being missed isn't the match in its importance with the story, but the final sacrificing of Vampiro's arm. If PJ wasn't willing to go that far, then Master never would have revealed himself.
And
it works with this. It worked with the story, and it was a good way of hiding the fact that Vampiro was a 50-year-old dude with back problems.
Right. Did it cross the line from like holy shit hardcore into making you uncomfortable hardcore?
No, they stopped.
No. All right.
No, I think we're all pretty jaded to violence by now.
I guess for me, I mean, I asked that because for me it did a little bit. I mean, I guess I'm jaded to violence, but it's been a long time since I've seen it on television like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
so
true.
It was for me. It was a little weird, but I mean, I didn't like turn the TV off or write a letter to the FCC or anything. But so yeah. I mean, my concern is, do you think this fits in with the overall storyline? I mean, because one thing that they were playing up on commentary here is Matt Stryker repeatedly was saying that this is not Ian Hodgson, this is Vampiro, and I mean, have they bait and switched us all year, or what do you guys think?
I hope they're leaving room for Vampiro to just be on commentary, maybe just in the vignettes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he worked really well with Matt Stryker for the last 10 episodes or so. It worked really well, and I would hate to have to find a new commentator.
I thought they were a bit grating at first, but much like a fungus, they grow on me.
And I certainly was not really a fan of Michael Schiavello either, so...
Yeah, I mean,
Vamp.
his accent, I had a hard time understanding him sometimes, too. I mean, I thought he was a decent villain, but...
It became more understandable for me when I realized that he was an Australian.
When you're trying to translate with the British part of your brain, you couldn't.
Yeah, I thought he was like British with some really bizarre regional dialect, and I looked him up and was like, oh, he's Australian. Suddenly he's way more easy to understand. Still kind of grating, but way more easy to understand.
I thought he was okay. It's just that he seemed to cross over too much with Stryker. They both were. Neither seemed to be color commentary.
Right.
They both seemed to be half and half, play-by-play, half color, and
they didn't have a great connection.
Yeah. And again, from the AMA, I think they got him literally on like 24 hours' notice. They had him on a plane going over notes, and yeah, he knew basically nothing about the whole thing besides what he could get in 24 hours.
But, well, given that, I'm a little bit more impressed with his performance then. But,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that there's my fantasy booking of this would be. You guys still hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I went black there for a second. I don't want to have one of these. I had an NXT thing once that didn't work at all. I don't want this to be that. That's actually how Cageside Speaks was born, though. Was
the Undertaker's going to appear in Chokeslam, you know.
I hope not. I'm like Tommy Dreamer. I'm not taking any more Chokeslam. I'm too old for that. I don't even remember what I was saying. Oh, I'm hoping that that they play up like Vampiro being taken over by his dark side or something. Yep. So that it wasn't just that they were lying to us the whole way. So
I'm also wondering if this is because they've been planting seeds for Vampiro and Conan all season since like the very beginning. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a sort of like a vicarious showdown between their two pupils, Prince Puma and Pentagon Jr. in season 2 now.
Now that would be a hell of a match.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I actually had the same thought because that started early with Vampiro always saying you can't trust Conan, and maybe that's what got him to go back to his dark side, was feeling that he needed somebody to counteract.
It's funny too.
Puma's reign.
It's funny too because Conan actually also did an AMA just recently, which was like it was a trip to read. But somebody asked him about the fact that Vamp is constantly calling him out at the desk. And he said they have a pretty good relationship at this point. So I think it would be funny to see them kind of as a callback to their actual, like they had real heat with each other, like shoot heat too.
Right.
And so that would be really interesting, and I think Puma and Pentagon would put on a hell of a series of matches.
Absolutely. That come on, season 2. So we went from that to the Gifts of the Gods match, 7-way for basically Lucha Underground's Money in the Bank, but you can't cash it in on no notice. You have to give Dario a week because he's a businessman and he wants to make some money. Goddammit! So that's what the winner of this was. All these guys have been earning these medallions, and this was going to be their chance to get the belt with all the medallions on it. And
it's the Dragon Balls.
That's a fourth really costume change.
I've got one more left.
You should probably fix your head.
Blue, you were going to say something?
The Dragon Balls are a great analogy.
It is.
LU has done really well in these multiple-person matches of just not making it boring. And this was another one that was just... It was kind of my theme for this whole event was, spectacular fun. Not a technical wrestling showcase, but fun nonetheless. And this match I thought was excellently done.
One of the things I think they do absolutely right is that they have odd-numbered battle royals. Typically, in battle royals, people just pair off and start going at it, so you just kind of get a cluster in the ring. With the odd person, this way you can ensure someone's always in motion. There's always something to look at, which always just clears more space for the next spot to come in and do. I guess you could say this one was slightly overbooked. mostly because no one wants Davari around.
Yep, I'll agree to that. If you could just like hack something off of this season and have it change for the better, I think just eliminating Davari entirely would be
No,
probably.
I love
I will disagree with that for one reason only, is because if you eliminate Davari, you lose the office scene where he takes Dario's drink, and the look on Dario's face is worth everything to me.
I mean, Davari, he's so great at being a schmuck. I mean, I'm so happy he's around.
And another schmuck who made his presence known in this match is our good buddy Marty the Moth.
How dare you?
Oh, he is absolutely ridiculous, and I just adore him for it.
I'm not saying I don't adore him. I'm just saying he's a schmuck. These things are not mutually exclusive.
He's a bit of a schmuck, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to be on the bandwagon, so whatever.
There you go.
Though I keep going, damn it, moths don't fly like that. They don't go flappity flappity flap. They go.
Big moth.
He's a really big moth.
He's a huge moth.
It's awesome that he's got a sister we get to find out about.
I know, right? So only on Cageside Speaks do you get a man in a LA Park mask educating you on how moths actually fly. I just want to put that out there. So a lot of this was story based, and a lot of the players in this match got their biggest moments in the overrun segment. So not to jump to that, but yeah, that's where we found out that Marty has kidnapped Sexy and has a sister on her way.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was a really neat touch that they basically cocooned Sexy Star in with some silk-looking rope because moths have silk.
I didn't even put that together. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it now.
The match itself had really amazing spots, most of which I couldn't find in the GIFs. You actually have to go back through and watch it.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff was just amazing that they were actually willing to do. Like Bengala's nifty little move with Cuerno when he had him kind of strung over the middle rope, flipped him into a backbreaker of sorts. That was one. Jack Evans had a couple of nifty spots. I was very impressed by King Cuerno, and even though a couple of Lucha Underground guys have stolen moves from my E-wrestlers, I'm stealing one from him because of that Dragon Sleeper surfboard thing he did, where rather than just sticking his legs behind Jack Evans' knees, he just bent his guy's goddamn legs on and tucked them underneath. And
Maybe a little after.
That was my favorite part of the match, is that particular submission hold.
And I liked how the action in the match set up a lot of that, the post-match, the post-show segments, including the Cuerno stalking Phoenix thing, which I'm going to use this as a segue to let Blue talk about his boy. You know, Blue's our boy, but Blue's boy is King Cuerno, so...
King Cuerno is hilariously underutilized. He is, like, pound for pound, I think, one of the best luchadors in the whole roster. I mean, everything he does looks crisp, looks with a purpose. The La Flecha del Infierno is one of the best suicide dives I've ever seen. I mean, he's never said a word except for that one office segment with Dario, and his body language, his mannerisms, like what he does with his eyes and his mouth, that you can see that he's got a mask on. It's just like everything he does is just so on point and with a purpose, and that's kind of rare across all promotions.
Yeah, and the thing is, this isn't his usual gimmick either.
Right.
He's Hijo de Fantasma, I do believe.
Right. He picked up an entirely new gimmick for this show, and he's just nailing it.
And he's killing it. He's one of my favorite characters on the show, and almost his stuff is almost entirely in ring.
Well, it helps when you wear a deer on your head, though.
Yes.
I thought
which which created a great visual when that match he had with Puma, where Puma first debuted his Puma headdress.
Yes. Yep. Even though his spirit animal is a jaguar, which still bothers me a little bit, but that's okay. But it does look like, I mean, I don't know. Well, it's possible he could be getting into the main event picture next season, since he's in his pickup truck, which those guys had the perfect vehicles.
All of them.
Yeah. So he's stalking Phoenix, and maybe he'll steal that belt and get a title shot. Although Phoenix has the obvious tie-in to with the long-running feud with the new champ, but we'll get to that in a second. From the Gift of the Gods match, we went into what I think pretty much everybody agrees is the least exciting part of Ultima Lucha.
The whole season.
Yeah. This one was done in by Chavo's injury a little bit. I thought they would tie it in a little bit more to something Dario related, but they didn't really. So we got Blue Demon versus Tejano with the crew in suits and blue ties, and Chavo came back and stuff happened. And
I mean, it was visually striking, but the picture of him with the crew. But other than that, it was not wasn't ideal. Didn't enjoy it.
To do something. That's what I got.
Yeah, they kept it kind of short.
Of all of the matches that were on the card, that was one of them.
Exactly. That was a match right there.
They gave Chavo his 4th turn of the season.
Yeah.
Took place. And they actually have the potential for a good story going forward, with possibly Tejano and Alberto Patron aligning to go against Blue Demon and Chavo and the crew and so forth. So there's plenty of potential, but
Mexico's present versus Mexico's pants.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's that pretty much. How do you guys?
I outright skipped the match. This is literally the only part of Lucha Underground that I skipped over in 39 episodes. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I watched it, but on replays I haven't rewatched it. I'll say that. So
yeah.
What do you guys think about Tejano? This is my first sort of big experience to him. I mean, he was the AAA Mega Champ before El Patron
for 2 years running.
Am I missing something here? Was this not the best showcase of him, you think, or
you could have just take some time to get used to him?
Okay.
I don't know a lot about him outside of Lucha Underground, so.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that he was the champ there for a long time, so I was sort of expecting something a little bit more impressive than what I got.
I think the other problem was there were so many standouts, and just kind of a bland character contrasted with everything else.
Right.
Oh boy, you're a dude in trunks with a bull rope.
Yeah, that was pretty much the gimmick.
Oh hey, it's a smaller Mexican, shittier Stan Hansen.
If they made a T-shirt for him that said "Smaller Mexican Shitty Stan Hansen," I would buy it. I guarantee. Write that down, Lucha Underground. I need a Dario with my homeboy shirt, and I need that Tejano Jr. shirt. We got a nice. I mean, Lucha Underground has to be second, they do them differently. So I would say maybe second only to WWE in terms of production packages. In terms of the pre-fight hype thing that we got for Mill and Puma heading into the main, and again, this kind of irked me here. These last 2 matches. I mean, the Blue Demon match was announced as no DQ by Melissa Santos, saying that Dario gave him that because he was a legend, and then this one became no DQ by Cueto, announcing that there had to be a winner.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would have liked to have maybe seen one straight wrestling match somewhere on the card, but a minor beef.
Weren't they all straight wrestling matches because Pimpinella Escarlata wasn't on the show?
True. That's hey, we don't know. Pippi could be straight,
It could be.
It's not. The thing with the Exoticos is not about orientation.
Right. It's about gender flexibility.
It's about psychological warfare.
Or something. I don't know what it's about. I'm not Mexican, so I can't explain it to you.
It's about Pippi being awesome.
There you go.
Exactly.
I don't give 2 shits. When he goes into the crowd and kisses dudes, it's not just hilarious. It's not just part of his gimmick. It's a great way to fuck with the dudes in the ring as well.
Absolutely.
The fact he can actually back it up actually is what makes it work. He's not some joke who's just there for the sake of being there. He's not a jobber.
He actually backs it up in the ring.
Who's a face and who's a heel with.
Yep.
And he's good for that.
Agreed. But he wasn't in this match, so so let's talk about this match.
Back up.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, that's we got there somehow, and it's good ground to cover because it's one of the things that made the show really something.
Yeah, and when I did his profile, it was actually really interesting to learn that side of Lucha Libre and actually have people represent it in an American product. So
Yeah.
that was cool.
And that's been a staple of Lucha for decades. I mean, back when, all WWE has done is gay panic characters like Adrian,
Adrian Adonis.
Yeah. Or Rico or Billy and Chuck,
Oh, God, Billy and Chuck.
So, sorry, let's talk about something good. Let's talk about
TNA
Mil
with
versus...
Orlando Jordan.
Yeah.
Lol TNA.
Let's go back to happy things like Lucha.
Let's go back to happy things. Let's talk about Mil
Go back
versus
to our happy
Puma.
place, yes.
Again, I don't think anybody was shocked by the outcome here, like as with the trios title change. Puma has held the title all year. But, I mean, how did the match stack up for you? Did it deliver on its main event promise?
I think so.
I like that, Puma didn't just roll over, that, he had, the guy had been champ for the whole season, and he got in the requisite amount or the appropriate amount, I guess, of effort to keep his belt. But, they build Mil, particularly now that he has returned from the grave again, as this, unstoppable mythic force. And so, when you do that, you kind of this played out the only way that would make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're a dude in a Puma mask, and you're going against the literal embodiment of death. You're not coming out of that one on top. It's interesting. I think, if I recall correctly, the only Mil has 2 losses, and they're both to Phoenix, I do believe.
Right. One of them being grave consequences.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, he's pretty much a badass.
I thought Puma actually did something more important here beyond just the match. We have these very mythical creatures, and Mil Muertes is more or less godlike in this world. And Prince Puma going toe-to-toe with him as long as he did bridges a really critical gap between your normal human wrestlers and then people like Mil Muertes and Phoenix, who are supposed to be above and beyond everybody else just based on what their gimmicks are. So with that by itself, Puma did a great service to the whole realm of Lucha Underground. The match itself, I thoroughly enjoyed. They could have avoided going into the stands, didn't really add anything to it. It was just seemed more for time filler.
Right.
Just I remember the visual of Mil Muertes just literally moving his hands and the crowd parting before him, and that just looked so neat.
Yeah,
that was a very cool visual.
But like Puma using the shoe to attack him was kind of nonsense. Like he full sold it like an awesome dude, but they could have kept
that. It's Michael Cole's other shoe coming to attack Lucha Underground's monster after.
Who throws a shoe?
Honestly.
I thought the other thing that's really going to stick with me going out of this is the visual of the super flatliner of Puma hitting the mat and dead fishing off of it, and the whole ring is just shaking. That was absolutely fantastic. And they ended the match immediately afterwards, and that was just the right way to do it. It was awesome.
I would say that we saw the worst of Lucha Underground's editing at the opening of this show, and that spot right there, that's like, there was a video that was a fan post, a guy who had like filmed a wrestling match, like a movie that was around a couple months ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, and I thought that was a bit much to do it, but that one touch for that move, I thought was phenomenal, and a great like capstone to the wrestling of the season too, like you said. I mean, that's what ended it. Was that move, and the way they filmed it was awesome. And then of course a lick of death. So we end on the darkest timeline. Katrina in the ring with all the belts.
Not the darkest timeline. Phoenix has the gift of the gods.
True. There is hope.
Yeah, and if anything, life always wins. I think what'll be interesting is Phoenix will clearly need reinforcements at some point. So will it be team dysfunction? Will Katrina's opposite show up? Someone who reinforces the aspect of life, who doesn't necessarily need to be directly associated with Phoenix, but just in the vicinity. Especially with Katrina having the stone, which seems to have its own extra power that just helps Katrina with her own. So it's not the darkest timeline.
What's Katrina's end game? I mean, is she just? I mean, is it? I mean, does she just want destruction, or is there some nuance there that we haven't seen yet? What do you guys think?
Well, the one thing that's been consistently true all season is that the one person who's been a step ahead of Dario for the entire season has been Katrina. Like everything, right. She's had an answer for everything that he's done, everything that she's wanted, he's given her. You know, I don't really know what we haven't really been shown or hinted at what her end game is beyond getting all of the gold. And now she has all of the gold, so it's going to be really interesting next season to see, you know, where they go with that.
Agreed. So does Dario have fights on two fronts then? He has. I mean, we think these are separate. The Katrina fight and the whatever family El Dragon Azteca is attached to.
I don't think he might not have to have a fight with Katrina. Seems to be just in it for. He likes the violence. He likes the spectacle. He likes the chaos, and I don't see where. The only time I can recall Katrina and Dario coming into conflict was the bit where he wouldn't give a title shot till she choked him out with his own keychain.
Yep. That was
I mean, if anybody's taking out Katrina, it's not Dario. Yeah. He has other things to worry about.
He's got to find a new place to hold his wrestling matches.
He has to build a new temple.
Yeah, and Katrina and Dario really aren't necessarily in conflict with each other. Dario can still benefit from Katrina doing her thing.
So let's talk about that the post-credit scene, which I think to me is why a lot of us love this show. It was like any other television show with recurring plot lines and characters is developed, and now we have a cliffhanger, but we have a lot of stuff that we're excited for. What stuck out to you the most out of that? I mean, what are you most excited for season 2? Should it happen?
It was brilliant. It was Lucha Underground in a nutshell. It was so great. I mean, it was everyone. It was everyone was there, and everybody did their thing. Like having Cuerno stalking Phoenix, having Son of Havoc riding off with Ivelisse, and of course Ivelisse is the one driving because of course she is. You know, having Aerostar turn into a rocket, having Drago turn back into a dragon. I mean, the whole thing was just. I mean, the question mark on the billboard, White Hoodie inheriting El Dragon Azteca's mask. I mean, there's so much. They set up so many possibilities, and it all just looked great.
Obviously, I'm looking forward to the Machismo story with Sexy Star.
Yep.
He doesn't want to be a joke anymore, and considering it was Sexy who won the Moth medallion, that's just a great way to branch off into that story. It'll actually add a lot of depth to Sexy Star, which isn't necessarily there at the moment. Because a big part of her story was the abuse she had when she was younger. Right. Well, now she has to relive that, and how's that all going to play out? So they have the ability to tell a really fascinating story there. Again, the sister is going to be awesome, but then really, I'm just interested in the power play with Katrina and how Phoenix rises to that occasion.
Pun intended.
I'm just interested in seeing where they go. What. Oh, I take off the mask and you guys laugh too. Ha ha ha.
No, I didn't realize what I said.
He was slowly getting his Phoenix Rising joke.
Wow.
We can't all. We don't all have our puns planned out in advance like you, Vaughn.
I think it was a triple entendre. Actually.
I'm just looking forward to whatever they can come up with for a second season. I'm really interested in where they're going to take the whole Matanza thing. If we're ever going to actually see him in the temple proper, because I'm not sure if he has a match, if they're ever going to be able to live up to that.
Yeah, I mean, he basically have to murder some people in the ring, right? At least it's set up.
They murdered a guy backstage.
Yeah,
Yep.
At least one. Who's White Hoodie?
I hope it's Rey Mysterio.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the hint seems to be Rey Mysterio. Yeah,
The
with the question mark.
concerns me.
It's either that or it's Jim Carrey as the Riddler.
God, no. No, he
Riddle
wouldn't have been
me
able to keep
this,
his
riddle
mouth
me
shut.
that. Who's afraid of the big black bat?
I think the question mark was a good hat tip to all of us who think or hope that it's Mysterio, but it was also a little. They trolled us a little bit with our worries about season 2 there too by putting a question mark
I
out.
don't know. I think White Hoodie looked like he was too tall to be Mysterio, but who knows?
Maybe it's Mystico or Mystiziz or whatever his name is now. Sin Cara 1.
Sounds like a
Galvatron
super
getting rid of
villain.
him again?
That sounds like a plague themed super villain, Miss Disease.
That one took me a second, but I got it. I did. So last thing then, let's predictions for season 2. And just in terms of logistics, do you think it happens? When does it happen? What do they have to do to keep this prospect alive? I know. I mean, we've heard maybe different location, maybe on the road, maybe different taping schedule.
From what I've heard, their biggest thing is they want one more media partner, like so Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, something like that. And they need to bring production costs down a little bit, so they're looking into a different location because LA, let's face it, is a really fucking expensive city, not only to live in, but to do anything in.
I mean, my question is, Robert Rodriguez is a partner in this, and he has a whole complex in Austin, Texas, which is, I would think that would be a pretty logical place to rebuild the temple.
It would certainly make sense.
So, what do you guys think? So, what about time frame? Do you think?
I'm gonna guess that we go right into a second season, with the first airing being right when the first one happened. It's like last week of October.
Is there a risk of it losing momentum if it takes any longer than that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, well, here's an example. Agent Carter got picked up for a second season. It's not happening until next year. I don't think the hype for it has lessened at all because of that. I mean, people love it. The hype isn't keeping the hype and the momentum isn't the issue. The issue is getting more people, is getting more eyes on the product.
Yeah, and for everyone who was watching, I think we're going to realize just how much we liked it once we don't get any new material.
True.
And I think one of the benefits of them just recording it and slowly releasing it like this, other people not involved yet actually get to gauge our interest as the product itself grew. And Lucha Underground only just wrapped up on Wednesday. There's plenty of time left for us to gush about it and talk about it, and that by itself will generate more positive feedback for them and make their chances much better coming back for season 2.
I think that it's a couple ways that it can really continue to change pro wrestling is if it provides a model for other people that says you don't have to do this every week, that you can't take a break for wrestler health or anything else too. And I think I've been pounding this drum. I say it to the PR people who send us some of the clips and things that we've done. They got to get this bad boy on Netflix because it'll blow up like unbelievably.
Just a testing of it for season 1 would get so many people involved in Netflix. I don't have it right now. I would get Netflix in a heartbeat.
Right. And people, I think you could get non-wrestling fans to check it out and probably get hooked. I think there's a crossover to the kind of grindhouse B-movie fan that will watch the crap out of this, even if they would never watch Raw.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, I enjoyed it. We went a little bit longer than planned, but hey, it was that kind of show. It was worth it. Closing thoughts from anybody about this or anything else, or just want to tell me how much you love me, or anything? What do you got? Sorry, that was a Gino move. That's how he signs off podcast. But
Season 2. Can't wait.
Looking forward to season 2 for sure.
word, Dell.
We got one more mask.
No, it's a redo.
Okay.
Dell, did you just put the mask on just to put the mask on, or do you have a closing thought?
I put the mask on because I wanted to get in my little closer that says you can find me on Twitter. I'm KalindaVK. You can find me and my furry smut at furaffinity.net/Hellcat with a K. And I'm Von Kreiger, and with the mask I am Del Guerrero.
And I can't top that. So thanks, everybody.